All right, all right, all right. Welcome to another edition of the Journey to Freedom podcast. And I am Dr. B. I'm your host. And every time we get to do one of these, Dr. B just gets excited because we get to just talk to some folks that I know real well, some folks that I don't know as well. And then we just get to talk and chop it up and have some fun learning about what makes folks successful. I was having a conversation yesterday with a gentleman who said, well, what is Journey to Freedom all about? Where did that come from? And I explained, Casper, I don't know if you know this, but I was at a trust leadership conference, and there was a guy named David Horsager, who is just an amazing man when it comes to understanding trust and why people trust and why people don't trust.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he said, or I don't know if he said it because he's been on my podcast since, but there's no way he's like trying to discriminate on who shows up to his conference or who doesn't. He's a businessman, and if he can get 500 people in a room that are all paying him a whole bunch of money, that's what he's going to do.
Right.
And so, but when I get there, there's 500-600 people in the room, and there's like only 30 folks of color in the room. Now it's in Minnesota, so it's kind of the expectation is that this isn't the black mecca of the country.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I came back home and I'm like, we just talked about trust for 3 days and how important it is to show up at trust. And then I started thinking about my culture and the things that I do on a daily basis. And no matter where I'm at, I think that there's a whole lot of people that don't understand trust or can't trust people or have decided whether it was trauma when they were a kid or it was just their upbringing. It doesn't even have to be trauma. It's just we were taught not to trust anybody.
Yeah.
And I ask the question often, like when you show up, do you just say you have to prove yourself before I can trust you even a little bit? Do you give people the benefit of the doubt first and say, I'm going to trust you until you prove me wrong? Do you steer away from people because you've been told if they look like that or they come from there or they got that kind of money, I can't trust anything they say? And a lot of that comes from our upbringing and our moms and that kind of stuff. And so I come back to Denver and I say, I'm going to begin this process on helping or finding out why we don't trust. And then how can I implement some of these things that I learned at this conference? And from that, I did some coaching and I did some, interviews and I did some validation stuff.
Sure.
I said, let me start a podcast. And the podcast ended up becoming the Journey to Freedom podcast. And I said, in 2024, I'm going to interview at least 100 Black men from all over the country and find out why they're successful and then how they interact with trust. And so that was a couple years ago. We did 105 that year. We're at 250 now. And we just keep building and building and building. And I keep getting better and better. I'm not saying better and better people because all the men have just been phenomenal. I just get better at asking questions. I get better of probing and talking and me not talking like I'm doing now and letting the guests talk. And so today we get to be with Casper Stockham. And Casper and I have been friends for over 15 years now. Yeah. And we've been in rooms where we might be the only two Black folks in the room.
Okay.
For lots of rooms we've been in.
Or the only one. Yeah.
And still being able to interact and still being able to trust. And, we met each other at church and had a phenomenal pastor at the time that was just, wanting to do some of the things that I think that we talk about all the time. And then I've seen Casper and his wife, Cheryl, evolve in ministry and having to deal sometimes with different cultures and not just the fact that marriage can be tough, but the fact that sometimes there's cultural myths, there's cultural, when you have a couple that maybe come from two different races or just two different cultures, there might be some things that go on in their marriage that have to do with culture and have to do with, whether a side of their culture. I know like my wife is Hispanic and my wife told me that her grandma said, we want to make sure that you never marry a Black man. That's never can happen. Yeah. And of course she did, and grandma wasn't happy and all those other things that go along with that. But today, Casper, I want you to kind of just tell us a little bit about yourself. I ask my guests. I'm at my dad's house. His phone's ringing, so I apologize if you're hearing it behind. As soon as Casper starts talking, I'm gonna go unplug it. But I ask my guests to tell their story. They can start anywhere in their life they want to, but how did they get to the position that they're at now? And so, Casper, go ahead and take it away. And I'm gonna unplug this phone while you're talking a little bit. Then I'll jump back in. But thank you for being on today and being willing to spend some time with us.
Absolutely. So I love the title "Journey to Freedom," and when you are the host of a show like that, you're actually getting more of a benefit every week because you're having different perspectives happening every week, and you're the host, so you're hearing all of them. I did a podcast a couple years ago called Mastering Adam, and I had Christian men come on the podcast for 20 episodes. And my wife said that she noticed a difference in me over those 20 episodes because I was on each one, right? I was the host, right? So, I mean, it's just a great conversation about the biblical Adam and Eve, that whole story, everything as it unfolded. So I grew up in a very liberal, progressive household and on the East Coast. And by the time I was 17, I hated all things Republican and most things white. Just the way it was, right?
Yeah.
So I went into the military, and early I turned 18 in basic training, and I was there with good old boys from Texas and Oklahoma and Iowa and wherever, and I'm like, you talk about trust factor, like I had no trust, going on, and my defenses are up like 24/7, right? They never went down, right?
Yeah.
But I started because we had to start working together, right? You're a military unit. Eventually, the color barrier kind of goes away because we have a task to complete, and if you don't complete the task, everything fails, right? So working together and starting to realize, they grew up in an environment different than mine, but we have a mission now to work together, and I started to realize that it's not really where you come from or whatever, there are racists. Just because you're white doesn't mean you're racist. And just because you're black doesn't mean you're pure or whatever. It's just different. It just depends on the person.
Yeah.
And I became to start to trust people in general. I don't even care what color they are. I just I trust them, but my level of trust depends on what's going on. In other words, am I trusting them to go into battle with me where they have a gun and I have a gun kind of trust? Or is it just a trust, to show up on time and to complete a task or a job assignment? There's different levels of trust going on. So it really just depends on what the task is as to how much trust I give someone. But I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I really, today, I don't care if they're black, white, green, whatever. I kind of default to trust. I default to love because I'm a Christian. I default there first, and then I allow them to to show me whether my trust is misguided or not.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, because one of the things that I've found through doing this podcast, and now over 250 black men, because when I thought about it, it's like, I see that a lot of black women don't trust black men. I saw that black men don't trust other black men. We don't trust each other. I see a lot of black men who don't trust themselves. And, when I was trying to figure this out, and now that I've interviewed 250, I think my view on showing up trusting, like you said, it depends on the situation. I'm going to trust you as far as, hey, we can be friends right now. I'm not giving you my bank account numbers.
Right.
Right. Because I don't know you when I first meet you. But at the same time, I realized that most of the people are wanting to do good. They're wanting to be part of something. They might not know how to show it. They might not know how the whole system works. But until they prove me wrong or they're trying to hurt me, I have to depend on God to say, wait a minute, you brought this person into my life for a reason. And so I need to trust them right now. And then I worked in homeless services, which is, that's a whole nother world of trust and not trust. And, these guys that are coming in this 50-bed facility because they're trying to survive. And survival mode is a whole different type of trust, when they're trying to think, am I going to eat tomorrow? And then you got a $5 bill sitting, on your desk. I'm going to eat tomorrow. I don't know if I can blame it, because if I was in that situation and hadn't eaten for 4 days and I saw somebody with $5 sitting out there, I might grab it off the counter. I'm maybe not going to beat somebody up for it, but if that's a whole different set of trust. And so I thank you for sharing that, because it is dependent, but it's hard to get away from sometimes just the identity. I want to ask you about identity and like how your identity is shaped and how it's changed over the years of, like you said, your identity at one time is I didn't trust any white people. I didn't trust, my surroundings or anybody for that matter. How has that identity changed over the years, and how do you feel about folks now?
Well, it's changed quite a bit, and like I said, the military helped change it for me, because I went from an environment to where I didn't trust any white people to where I trusted based upon what was happening and what I was seeing. I like the old Reagan phrase, trust but verify. So, if they show me that I can trust them, then I trust them more. And they show me I can trust them, then I trust them more. It's really on an individual basis. I don't base anything I do today based upon skin color. I base it upon the interactions that I have with the individual. And I used to get mad at white people when they say, or white folks when they say, I don't see race. I said, yeah, everybody, you cannot not see race. Yeah. But I understand what they're saying is they're not trying to judge me automatically by my skin color, because they have preconceived notions about black people as well, right? So they're trying to not see my skin color until they get to know me. And then they might say, oh, he's just like all the rest of them. Or he might say, wow, he's different or whatever. So I try to be the same way. I don't try to judge people based upon their skin color. Now, I am biased, to some degree. I think we all are, right? We want, we want people to do well. We want the black community to do well. But it's tough because there's so much programming that goes on, and it's so subtle. It's really so subtle, but you mentioned showing up into rooms, with a bunch of white folks. And that happened to me all the time in politics. It didn't matter what side, Republican, Democrat, it didn't matter. Almost always it was just a room of white people and me, right? And maybe one other person. But I never felt one time did I feel like, oh boy, I might want to just ease out of this room. Because, I'm the only one. I never felt like threatened. I never felt like the whole room was going to converge, on me. So I'm 66. I know, I may not look 66, but I'm up there in age. And when I was growing up, my parents would say, don't put yourself in a room like that around a bunch of white people like that. But today, I believe that racism has decreased significantly from when I was growing up. Now, it doesn't mean it's gone, or doesn't mean it's going to ever go away. But for the most part, I think people are not racist. But I do believe that there are enough pockets of that going on that still cause people to say, see, there it is. It still exists. Well, yeah. It's going to exist. Evil is going to exist. It's going to exist, yeah. And that's evil. So it's going to exist. But if we give it air, if we give it, credibility, and we keep lifting it up, like every time I turn around, somebody, he's a racist, it's like, come on, right? Yeah. At some point, you've got to elevate the conversation. And just because I don't like you and you happen to be black doesn't mean I'm a racist. It just means I don't like you. For whatever reason. So I just look at those things individually, and I take it, I don't take it as seriously maybe as some think I should. But I'm living my best life as a black Christian in America. So
Yeah,
you know,
no,
I,
no.
I don't have time to be all down in the dumps because somebody posted something or whatever. It's not me.
Yeah, it's so good you're saying that because I feel the same way. I mean, I think there's some things that have changed, over time and stuff in my lifetime. My dissertation for my doctorate was based on experience versus potential, how to hire black administrators in schools. You see a population of, a whole bunch of young African American boys and girls that have never had a black teacher. Not that that is the end all. We all have to have black teachers in order to fill, but there has to be some, I don't know if there has to be, but sometimes you want to, when I go to rooms like the room that I was in at that conference, and say, well, it doesn't matter to me. I see people as people, but then I'm going, but I counted. So if I counted, it must mean that there's something in me that still longer wants to see because of the systems that have been created and maybe the opportunities that exist. And I don't know if we're on an full playing field now with some of the opportunities that exist. I think we're way, way better than we've ever been. And I think we can almost achieve anything that we want to achieve. But sometimes I still hear things. I was in a room not too long, this last couple of weeks where, there were some folks that came in that were people of color and they were late. And one of the comments from one of the gentlemen was, why are you people always late?
Yeah.
And I don't think the guy is racist, but is he willing to understand a different culture and say, is this what that maybe time is more important in your culture than it is in my culture?
Yeah.
Can you understand it?
Yeah. It's called CP time, right? And here's what's funny. So, I was in politics for a while and stuff, and I'd go to meetings. And when I would go to a meeting in the African, not African American community, the African community.
Yeah.
And and I would be there as a politician. I'm saying, okay, what time does it start? Okay, it starts at 10. I'm going to be there, 10 minutes before, or 5 minutes before, or 15 minutes before. Well, 10 o'clock rolls around. It still hadn't started yet. 10:15 still hasn't started yet. And I think, to your point, I think it is a cultural thing. I think that, it's just not timing the time of an event because the event's going to last for a while anyway. So it's not even like, okay, 10 o'clock is when we start at 10 and then 10:15. No, it's just, you get there around 10 and things are happening and about 10:30 things, it's like, okay. Whereas other communities, it's like, nope, this is the agenda, boom, boom, boom. It's like 10, 10:15, 10:20, it's all organized. So I think as long as we know that ahead of time, I think anyone, black, white, or whatever, can adjust to that and know that. I've heard people say that if you're on time, you're late. Right?
5 minutes early is late. I've heard that one several times.
Yeah, and that's a business mindset, right? Because a business person, their time is valuable. I just had someone set an appointment with me to come over to my home, and they said they're going to be there at a certain time. Well, an hour later, they showed up, and I'm like, I didn't say anything, but I'm like, it was.
No, you taking that to a whole new level.
Yeah, it took everything within me not to just go off on, because I'm like, I'm busy, man. Even though I'm working out of my home, I'm home. Yeah, I get that, but I'm busy, and I could have done 5 other things in between the time, whatever. So it's like, no, my time is valuable, and when you treat people's time valuable, then they start to respect you more. So. I think that's something to keep in mind.
I think today the bigger issue is social economic than it is race. I mean, and it might be because, certain races haven't had the same opportunities, so they don't live in the same socioeconomic status. It seems to be that some minorities are living in a lower socioeconomic status than some of the higher middle class folks, and that's changing a little bit.
Yeah.
Are there systems that you are still affected by, or just systems that you were affected by throughout your life that you think we still need to work with or deal with, and especially on social and economic, or how do we get where everybody has those same opportunities?
Well, so I don't think there's ever going to be a time where everybody has access to everything that everybody else has
Yeah.
access to. I just don't
Yeah.
think that's a dream or whatever, but I don't think that's a reality. But I do know that people in general rise to the expectations that are put upon
Yeah.
them. For example, in the Asian community, you're not allowed to be late, lazy, whatever. You have to work, and you
Yeah.
got to work hard. And if you come home with a C, that's like the kiss of death, right? You have to come home with A's and B. If you get a B, it's bad, right? It's like all A's across the board. I mean, they have such a higher level of expectation of their children to outperform everybody. But so in the black community, if that doesn't exist, now when it exists, then we excel. I've seen black kids where their parents are teachers or they're educators or whatever, or they're professional people. They expect their children to be professional and act professional and all dress professional, everything. So it's really just a question of your environment. If you're in an environment where the expectations of you are like, man, if you just survived a day, okay, congratulations, you survived, right? And
Yeah.
other expectations, like if you don't get the A's and if you don't get the scholarship and if you don't get the thing, I mean, that's when the pressure is put upon you. But it's not, for me anyway, from what I've seen, it's not about color. It's about the environment that you're raised in. Because you can take a white kid and put them in a poor, impoverished environment, and there are plenty of poor white people, same thing. No education, really, no expectation of them getting beyond where they're at. There's more white people on welfare than black people in America. So if you're in that environment, that's where you're going to stay. And that's the level you're going to rise to. So the military, I came from a two parent home. My father worked, my mother stayed home. So my mom was a homemaker, and my dad was working all the time. And we had expectations, right? We couldn't just do whatever we wanted to do and stay out. And, I mean, just whatever. We had to be home at a certain time. Street lights came on, we had to be coming into the house. There were expectations put on us from graduating from high school, going into college or whatever, or going into the military. Do something productive with your life. And as long as those things are in place, I think those children, black or white, start to rise up to those expectations.
That's so good. I want to talk about, you just mentioned that you came from a two parent home. And I can say in our culture that there are so many kids who grow up in a one parent home. And most of the time it's the mom and the dad is maybe in the lives, but maybe not as much. And I don't know if you've seen an uptick of families being together. As I've done these shows, and I've interviewed now over 250 men. It's a very small percentage in comparison that actually had two parent homes. What are you seeing trend? Are you seeing more men staying around, or I mean, the stereotype says that we can't find dads, but I don't think that's true either. But how's that progressing where we're at now?
Yeah, I think it's unfortunately, I think it's getting worse. So Cheryl and I are Christian marriage coaches and stuff like that, and we talk to a lot of families, and a lot of people, especially in the black community, come from broken homes, and I think that's really a large reason why the expectations are low, because they're looking at their home environment. They don't really have any structure, any supervision. There's no father in the home to be the disciplinarian, so to speak. So they just kind of, once they become a teenage male, and the mom kind of loses control of that situation. He's like, whatever, mom, not what are you gonna do? So yes, that is a huge problem, and it definitely is a huge problem in the black community, to where the it's not a two-parent home anymore. I don't even know what the numbers are, but I know it's high, and I know that it's something we need to address. And that's a societal problem that the for me the answer is Jesus, right? But we still need to get the father back into the home. Now, you mentioned about some systematic things that are in place. The welfare system is not designed to keep the father in the home. The welfare system is designed to keep the father out of the home. In fact, they say if there's a two-parent home, you can't qualify for welfare. If the father's there, then there's no need for the government to be there. So the government's like, get that dude out of there, so we can come in and be the father.
Mm-hmm.
So those systems are in place, and they affect anyone who's on welfare, and it's not discriminatory. We kind of focus on the black community, but like I said, there's more white people on welfare than black. So in a white home, if the male is in the home, if they find out the male is living in the home, then that white woman, has to come off of welfare. So it's the same problem. It's just that we're focusing in on the black community because it is a huge issue.
Well, yeah, and it happened, I think, when the welfare system came about in the way that it is. There were so many black families that were trying to live together, and then they were told that they had to separate. And then, right after that, we had mass incarceration.
Yeah.
Before that, before integration, the black schools and the black population was doing extremely well.
Correct.
And then we integrated schools and took young black men and women, and we bused them to schools and then put them in the back of classrooms and said that they weren't enough and not allowed them, and just the dismantling of the family unit. For a single black woman, or just a single woman that has kids, what are some of the advice that you can give them on not just raising their daughters and their sons, because that was probably a little bit more difficult, but how can they find community? How can they find a system or a group of people that can help raise their kids? Or are they just trying to raise them on their own, figuring out the best they can?
Yeah, I don't recommend them trying to raise their children on their own. The challenge is finding a community, back to our original topic of trust, right? Mm-hmm. Who can you trust? Because you don't want to just turn your children over to just anyone or any community. So hopefully there is a decent church that they can attend. Now, it may take some effort to find a good one, if you will, because just because they have the label of church or the church building doesn't mean there's solid godly principles being taught at that location. So you'll have to do some research to find a good one. And then a lot of churches have youth programs, so at least they can get some level of guidance and leadership from others who are also in that same situation, or trying to get ahead. So I would start there. If I was a single mother now trying to raise my children, you have to find a positive influence for their life, because if you don't, the street will. Right? The gangs are masters at manipulation of the youth. So they will be loving, they'll do all the things that we should be doing as Christians, right? They'll love on the kids, man. Say, oh, young blood, don't worry about it. Let me get you some sneakers. Let me get you this. Let me get you that. And if the parents pushing back, they say, hey, don't worry about it, young blood. Just come on to the clubhouse. I get you some money. And once you become a teenage gang member, then they just find you some young hottie to hang out with, and you're in.
Yeah, you're in. You're in and loving it. You're not just in.
Yeah, exactly. You're in and loving it, right? So the single mother has to be able to replace that quickly, and do it when they're young, when they're not in their teens, because by the time they're in their teens, it's almost too late. You have to do it when they're young, get them in a solid church type environment. And I'm using the church thing lightly. I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm saying, because I know that there are church organizations that are not godly. They call themselves a church organization. That's why you have to be very careful. Do your due diligence. Trust but verify when you're putting your child in these, or attending a
Yeah.
church and going to the youth groups and stuff.
Organizations.
Yeah,
Or,
yeah,
I just thought of something, Casper, that I don't know if it's around, and maybe you can tell me if it's around. It's got to be at this time, but I'm thinking, as a single mom, is there like a way that I could vet, like a questionnaire or a thing where I could vet an organization? But before I even do that, how do I vet my own values and my own systems? Because there's some single moms that, or single dads, I don't want to just rule out, but that's, who I see, that they they're not in alignment. They say,
yeah,
this is my belief system, but nothing in their life holds to what they say their values are. And before they can go vet somebody else, maybe there's some things that have to happen in the home. Are there things out there like that says, hey, before I let my kid join this church, these are some questions I should be asking?
yeah. So I'm sure there are, and I hate to do a self plug on
I
this.
want you to.
So my wife's book, Mastering Eve, Becoming the Best Adam for Your Eve, is a great book for single moms or even current wives of husbands, Adam, to read that book, because that gives them some guidelines. It gives them some structure. It gives them a base, for their values and all those things. So that is definitely in place. And then within that book, there's the 7 keys to mastering Eve. And those will help them, with that checklist that you're talking about. Now, it doesn't directly give them a checklist for an organization, but it gives them the foundation that they need, so that it's once you have the values and foundation in place for yourself, it's easier to evaluate an organization, because your spidey senses go off as soon as they start saying some stuff. You're like, no, that doesn't sound right. Never mind. Kids, let's go. Time to go, kids. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Because I think of, like, when I was young and I was a young parent, how hard it was for me just to be a parent. And my wife was with me. There was both of us doing it.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being a young child, or that's trying to now raise a kid. And when I say young child, I'm saying it, a 20-year-old, 21-year-old who is trying now to raise a child, and like, I have no clue. And somebody comes around and says, I'm going to help you raise your child. It could be so far off but you're desperate for help, because it's taking everything out of you just to put food on the table.
Yeah. I'd be very cautious with anyone that just says, "Hey, let me raise your child. Let me do that for you." I was like, "No, that's okay." We have a MVP Love Hub community. It's a God-centered community for married folks and single folks. They can join. It's outside of the Facebook kind of thing. It looks like Facebook, but when they're in it, it's very similar to Facebook, how it operates. But we have a lot of free tools and information and just some guidance on a lot of these things. And then Cheryl and myself are also available for if they have any questions, or, if something comes up when it comes to relationships and things like that, we'd be happy to, to help them out. But I have a book called Mastering Adam for the guys in this discussion. And then Cheryl has a book for the women, Mastering Eve, in this discussion. So, there are resources out there for sure.
Yeah. What do you say to the guys or the men that said, I just had this baby, I want to take care of my baby, but this spouse or girlfriend, in a lot of cases, that I had this baby with, really doesn't like me?
Doesn't like the guy? I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. I'm sorry, you're breaking up. I'm not.
Yeah, I was just saying, do they keep after it? Do they, for these gentlemen who are saying, for whatever reason, there's a breakdown in the relationship,
Uh-huh.
whether it's a spousal relationship or they just had a kid out of wedlock. But the mom has decided this is a no good dude, and I'm gonna do everything I can to stop the relationship with their kids the best that I can. What do we tell the guys that are going through that?
Well, I have firsthand experience in the exact thing twice,
Okay.
so
Okay.
so I can tell them what I did, and
Okay.
I think I did the right thing.
Okay.
God to be the judge of it. But I've had hostile mothers in a situation to where we just didn't see eye to eye. We didn't get along. I'm not blaming them for how it happened. That was just as much my fault as theirs. But we're talking about the aftermath, right? How do you deal with that? So, first of all, you have to understand that you can only control your actions. You can't control the other person. You can't control your ex-spouse or ex-girlfriend or whatever. So you have to do what you know is right to do, which is try to maintain communication and contact with your children. And if it's long distance, it makes it even harder because I was in the service and I had to drive from South Dakota at one time to Maryland just to see my children. And I was supposed to drive, and they're supposed to be with me every summer. So I drove from South Dakota to Maryland, picked up my toddler children, and bring them back to South Dakota. But I would get to Maryland, and then my ex decided that it wasn't going to happen. She wasn't going to release my children to go with me. And we got into not physical altercations, but she wanted to call the military police.
Oh, okay.
And I said, please call them. I have I got papers. I'm like, I'm doing the right thing, right? I'm coming to pick up my children to take them to my home for vacation. And then the military police said that they didn't have jurisdiction over the divorce because I'm like, well, of course you have. You were on military base. I have legal divorce papers. So, but anyway, so they just advocated to stay out of it. So I wind up not getting my children. But I made the effort. Mm-hmm. Now, fast forward 30 years later, my grown daughter, who was 5 years old at the time, she is now 44. Mm-hmm. And she's actually staying with me for a couple months. She's at my home right now. She's upstairs.
I love it. Yeah.
And we've had conversations about those years. And she said that she knew that I was trying to see her and her sister. In fact, her sister, Faith, she's here too.
She's there too, yeah.
So, but my point is that she knew that I was trying. She knew that I was a dad that's trying. And she, unfortunately, now she has a very strained relationship with her mother because of all this. Had the mother said, hey, take them, it would have been a much more even keeled deal. So for those guys out there, you just need to do the right thing, paying child support, trying to see them, send them cards for their birthday or whatever, birthday gifts, those kind of things. And things will work themselves out. They have for me. I have a great relationship with my daughters now, and both of them are here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, and I can say of all the folks that I've been interviewing over the last 2.5 years, that has been consistent in working itself out when the men are trying.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have said, I was angry. The judge is asking me for, whatever percentage of my paycheck. And I see it going to, this woman who is not allowing me to participate in it.
Yeah.
And it made me so angry. And they're driving me to say, but I didn't give up. Right. And the relationships just like yours is, years later, the kids do know that. They, even though, unless there's no way that they ever know you were trying.
Right.
But they do. And so that's so good. Thank you for sharing that, because I think there's a lot of men that are in that situation and they don't know what to do. And then they say, well, I'm not giving her any money. And so then it goes down this whole other road, right? Now you're owing child support, and now the system is even looking at you as a worse father, and then there's
Yep.
no help,
Yep.
and then so, oh my God, that's so good. I want to I guess pivot into health. And how is it, or what are you doing? You said you're 66. You definitely don't look 66. I don't even see no gray hair, so I don't know how that's happening, but there's no gray hair there.
It's called Walmart. They can hook you up, brother.
Oh man, I love it. But what are some of the things that you're doing? Because I guess it's not so good. I guess they say that the average black man lives to about 72.
Yeah.
I'm at my dad's house now. He's 87, and he's got a lot more years left.
Yeah.
But what are some of the things that you do to make sure that you maintain your health?
Yeah. So as far as my looks and stuff, so my wife Cheryl, she's close to my same age, but she looks young as well. And I said, I'm tired of looking old. I'm done with this old man look thing. That I'm not feeling it. So I went to Walmart and took care of that. But but I still but I still work out every day.
Okay.
And I watch what I'm eating. I'm not on any kind of medications, high, low blood, none of that stuff. In fact, I went to I have my 65 what do you call it, physical thing, and this young doctor, I call him young, he's like 30, 35, 36 years old, and he says, "So you're not on any medication?" I said, "Nope." You see, you don't have any aches and pains and arthritis and what? Nope, none of that. And then they do some more tests and stuff, and then he finally comes in for the final eval. And when he was done, I said, "Not bad for a 65-year-old." He said, "It's not bad for a 50-year-old." So, yeah. So I do things in moderation. I don't avoid alcohol, but it's not a thing. I don't drink a lot. I don't smoke at all. I used to smoke, back in my 20s, but I don't smoke anymore. I just watch what I bring into this godly vessel and make sure that I'm doing the things that God would approve of, that I'm taking in. So stay away from processed foods as much as possible. Work out every day. And just stay active.
That's good. I mean, because there's so many people who don't have really good health, and the diet can, the things that we put into our bodies and the things that we eat. People think, well, I just go exercise, but no, it's especially when you get foods that just don't agree with you. Your body can't process them the way you need to.
Right. They can't process it, and and if they process the food before it gets into your mouth, unfortunately, your body can't process it.
I love that. I love that you said that. Yeah, no, I agree. You can't. You try to, and you make an effort, but yeah, no. There are so many things that are in our diets that we need to take out.
Yeah.
Especially the processed foods and the fast foods and things that are our favorites. And some of moderation, like you said, it's okay. It's okay to go to Thanksgiving dinner and have all the the childhood favorites.
Right.
But that can't be your meal every day. You can't be cooking with grease all day long every day and expect to be healthy.
Exactly. My biggest vice is bacon. That's probably my only thing that I just kick out all the whatever. I don't care what they say about bacon. I'm eating it, and I
I hear you there. I've actually been enjoying turkey bacon. I don't know why. I actually chose it. I was at a church on Sunday that I was speaking at, and they had the breakfast meal before church, and they said, "Do you want turkey bacon or regular or pork bacon?" And I looked at it. I said, "I'll just take the turkey bacon." I'm telling you, that's the first time in my life where I had a choice. Now, I bought them both and had them, but when they're sitting side by side, that was the very first time this week that I actually chose the turkey bacon over the other bacon. But it's so important. Speaking of that, as I think of my 5 pillars, which are trust, faith, identity, health, and finance.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to kind of just hear your journey, your faith journey, and what has allowed you to become, you said you're living your best life.
Yeah.
And I know because part of it is because of your faith and your journey with faith. Maybe you can just kind of talk to us about that.
My journey in faith started by accident.
Okay.
No, because I was in the Air Force, and they asked us. Well, they said if you want to get baptized, you can go off base and go to the local church and get baptized. And I was like, off base? Sound like a good plan to me. Let's go.
That's all you heard. You get baptized off base?
Off base. It was off base. I was like, all right, let's do it. So, so I got baptized. I didn't even know what it was or why I was doing it. It wasn't for the right reason, obviously. And then when I got into marketing and sales and stuff, and got into some companies, and they were Christian based. In other words, they really focused on being being Christian, and they would have altar calls. They'd have a weekend training, and then on Sunday they say, hey, before you leave, come to church or come to service, and then they have an altar call. And I'm like, okay. So I was there, and they said, anybody want to give their life to Christ? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. It's going to help me make some more money. Let's do it. So, so like I said, that kind of started that process. But in that process, though, I did mature in faith. And then, man, this is a weird story. I don't know how much time we have, but I'll try to make it quick. I was in South Dakota in the Air Force, and I met this guy, and he was a black guy and stuff. He's also in the Air Force. And, we started talking about Christ, being a Christian and stuff. And he said, have you received the Holy Spirit? I'm like, oh, the what? Holy Spirit, what is that? And he said, oh, man, I got to tell you about the Holy Spirit. So we just started having these Bible studies at lunchtime. And he was telling me about the Holy Spirit. And then he said, okay, I'm going to walk you through this. You're going to receive the Holy Spirit. I'm like, okay. So we went through it, and then I did. And here's what's bizarre about this, Brian. Literally, he didn't disappear out of the car. But after that last session, I never saw him again.
Really?
Never saw him again.
Like an angel, or oh my gosh.
I'm not trying to make it kind of woo woo. I'm just saying, after that, the last session, like he didn't disappear out the car. It wasn't like he just poof and gone. It wasn't like it wasn't like Philip. They got called up after he baptized the eunuch or whatever. It was just I just never saw him again, and I can't tell you to this day what his name was. I just know that we had these sessions, and he introduced me to the Holy Spirit. And then I started speaking in tongues and stuff, and I started to really lean more into my spiritual growth. And that was back in the 80s, that's back in the mid 80s. And that's kind of where I am today with Cheryl and I. And, we're deacons at our current church. We're over the marriage ministry at our current church. We do marriage training every month for our church, and we do marriage retreats for our church. And now we're even wanting to expand out and do those trainings for other churches, even online or in person. So we'll take our show on the road and hang out with them Friday night, all day Saturday, and even stay for the service on Sunday, just to teach the training that we do now for our church in other churches.
Yeah, and I know even in front of your business, or when you talk about your business, you say we are Christian marriage counselors. And so you're unapologetic about your faith and what this is. Do you find people who come to you to say, I just need some help? Or are they coming to you because you're a Christian, or because they've heard that might be a good place? How do you think that folks perceive you guys when they hear that?
Well, we get all levels of everything you just mentioned, but I really don't care how they perceive us. I'm unapologetic about it. It's in our name. I am Love Builders. So if they don't want to hear I am, then they just need to not be, right? Need to go somewhere else. But we were doing marriage workshops years ago, and it was for a government grant that It was paid for by the government, and we would travel around and do workshops. We were not allowed to mention God, Christ, praying, anything like that. But there was always love, forgiveness, all the things that we would teach, conflict resolution, all that was biblical. We just couldn't say it. The churches that we were teaching knew it because they recognized it right away that it was love-based. But we couldn't say God. We couldn't stop. If somebody needed prayer, we couldn't stop in the middle of the workshop and start praying. So we did that for over 8 years. But now when we do a workshop, if we're doing something and somebody breaks down and there's something going on, we can stop the workshop and just pray because that's who we are. So we don't shy away from it. And if somebody's not really into that, then they really should go somewhere else. Or we know other coaches who are I don't know, secular. They're just not biblical coaches. They're secular coaches. So we send them there.
Yeah, they're just not going to pray for you during the session, but they're going to make sure that you take care of it. Oh my gosh, it is so neat to because there's so many folks that are out there that are looking for a good marriage. They're looking for a great relationship, and if you don't have God in the middle of it, it's got to be pretty hard to do.
I don't know how to do it. I tried, brother. I tried 4 times before Cheryl. I tried. It didn't work.
No, it is. Yeah, you just go, okay, so if there's something that can bring you together and then that can keep marriages, because the folks that I continue to talk to that have really good marriages, and maybe I'm, like you said, I'm biased because I'm not seeing everybody. Yeah. I just don't know a whole lot of incredible marriages that don't have God in the center. Right. And it's neat that you're doing that.
Well, and it's sad though. I agree with you 100%. But we work with, I'd say 90% of people we talk to are Christians, and unfortunately, we're not seeing any difference between them and the world.
Oh wow.
That's where our heart is sad because of that. Because I'm like, you guys have God. You're supposed to be focused on the triangle, right? God at the top, and you guys are both working to get to God. That should be the focus. But their focus looks identical to the world's focus. They're selfish, they're self-centered, they don't forgive, they're egotistical. I mean, all those worldly things going on, and we're trying to strip that away and get that out of the way so we can get them focused on that triangle. And it is tough. We asked them, when they first come to us, and they, here, he's doing this, she's doing that. And so, okay, so let me ask you a question. Where is God in your relationship? Huh? What are you talking about? These are Christians. It's like, where is God? And I'm like, because we don't see it. We don't see God in your relationship. And I'm like, guys, and we listen to them arguing and stuff, or their disputes, and they're not even like real. I'm like, I'm not talking about like adultery. That's a pretty heavy thing, right? I'm not talking about heavy stuff. I'm talking about, I want to do this, and she won't. She doesn't want to do it, or she doesn't let. It's just petty stuff.
Do the dishes, and you won't do the dishes.
Yeah. I'm like, come on, guys. So yeah, it's but we love to do it. It's our passion. We've been doing marriage coaching for over 18 years. We have a new project that we're working on. Okay. This one, it's called the Marriage Constitution.
Okay.
And it came about because we're going to be doing an event at the end of May in Philadelphia, kind of celebrating the 250-year anniversary of America. Okay. And it's going to be involved with the Guinness Book World Records for the most authors signing the same book simultaneously.
Okay.
So the record was 157 or something in Canada about 10 years ago. So we're going to work on beating that record in Philly on the 30th of May. And when I was talking to the organizer of the event, he was talking about some other projects that are in conjunction with it. And I said, we need to write a marriage constitution. and dedicated to the 250-year anniversary of America. And we have 250 commitments that couples need to follow to have a solid marriage constitution, a marriage relationship.
Oh, man, that's so cool. What a great project to be a part of. Well, and just as an example, not just as folks that are getting, that are participating in it, but all the folks that are looking to examples of what is a good marriage, what is a constitution, what is 250 things that I now should probably look at before I ever get into this relationship that we're going to do this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, it's going to be a good book. And the 5 pillars, I know you have your 5. We have 5 as well. And it's covenant, family, freedom, purpose, and legacy.
Ooh.
So those are going to be the 5 areas that we're going to focus on with the 250 commitments.
That's awesome. That's going to be so good. And I can't wait to see the aftermath of when those parents and those folks who made those commitments now have children, and then they're still committed to those commitments. And I know it's not marriage is not easy, so I'm not going to say, "Oh, we made 250 commitments, and we're keeping all of them because we made the commitment." That's not how it works. But at the same time, if it's a document that can be seen, it's a document that they're trying to work on. That makes them more amazing parents. That makes them, more amazing at the relationships that go beyond their intimate relationship. But how do we view our neighbors? How do we view our community? How do we view our country? How do we view all the different aspects of what makes our life work?
Yeah.
And it starts with family, right? I mean, family is one of your pillars.
Yeah.
And that's probably the most important institution that can happen in our country, right? Is the family unit. So
exactly.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Casper, thank you for coming on today. I mean, I know we're getting to the time, and it's been an amazing conversation. I want you to take some time and just talk about your life. What is it that we can do? How can we support you? How do we get involved in the project? How do we get a hold of you? All those, things that folks who are watching this go, hey, these dudes got it together. I want to have a conversation. How do they do that?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, we're Casper and Cheryl Stockham, and we have a website called IamLoveBuilders.net. That's IamLoveBuilders.net. And you or anyone else can join our community, right? Our God-centered community. It's for couples and singles. And we call it our MVP Love Hub. And in there we have tools and video archives and just a lot of we have quizzes, love assessments, all types of things people can use to kind of get started. I like to say that if somebody spends 5 minutes a day in there, it will help improve their relationship or their marriage. Just 5 minutes a day, just kind of, going through, watching a video, you're checking it out, and then going about your day. But you're going to pick up stuff. Just like you have done over the years with Journey to Freedom, you've been picking up stuff as a host. And like I did in Mastering Adam when I had that podcast, I picked up stuff that to the point my wife noticed the difference. So that can happen for anyone that wants to improve their marriage just by joining for free. Now, we do have upgrades in there, if they want to get more access, just like a lot of programs. But even the free version in the Love Hub would be tremendous for helping them in their marriage or relationship.
Well, thank you. So IamLoveBuilders.net, IamLoveBuilders.net, and they will be able to access pretty much everything.
Yeah, just click on Join the Community, and they're in.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, thank you guys for being part of our podcast today. I love to say that you are God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. He wants to wrap his arms around you and just love on you the best he can. You are also, my friend, an answer to somebody's prayer. So I just want you to be attentive to him using you however he would love to. And if you just pay attention, there are people who are going to come to your life and through your life that you never knew were going to do. I think of Casper's story of the man that he did sessions with that changed his life, never saw him again, but he was an answer to Casper's prayer at the time.
Yeah.
And you get to be that for someone else. You're God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. And so thank you. Go ahead, subscribe, notifications, all those wonderful things. You can go to Becoming the Person Universe, which is our community that we'd love for you to be on. We have all kind of just wonderful things that we would love for you to be a part of. Books and stuff that are out there. Just reach out. We want to be there for you. So you guys have an amazing, awesome, what I would say incredible day today. Casper, you have one last thought as we walk away?
No, I appreciate the opportunity and stuff, and I know we've known each other for years, so I was excited to be able to just sit down and go through this stuff with you. It was awesome. I appreciate you, Brian.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. Thank you guys. Have an amazing, awesome, incredible day. We'll see you on the next one.